Hi, my name is Kerwin, and this is my video. This is my first video. Yay! I am going to be talking about some of my best reads this year in 2022, and I'm really excited for my reads of 2023. My next video will actually be me deciding what books I'm going to prioritize for 2023, which is going to be a really fun one, so you should stick around for that. But let's get into it. Wait, before we get into it, I also have a podcast called the Lit Readings. That is where I talk mostly about books, and I do like tarot readings or oracle card readings at the end. I just pick one card and just kind of go off the dome and see how we're feeling for the week, for the month, as a collective, and it's a really good time. So yeah, you should stick around for that. Sometimes I talk about music, anything I'm watching on TV and stuff too, but it's mostly about books, so that's always cool. But yeah, it's called Lit Readings. Everything will be in the description box below, but let's get right into it. So one of my favorite books this year was You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Kweke Emezi. I feel like I'm gonna read it anyway. It's been 5 years since the accident that killed the love of her life, and she's almost a new person now. An artist with her own studio, sharing a brownstone apartment with her ride-or-die best friend Joy, we love Joy, who insists it's time for Faye to ease back into the dating scene. Faye isn't ready for anything serious, but a steamy encounter at a rooftop party cascades into a whirlwind summer she could never have imagined. A luxury trip to a tropical island, decadent meals in the glamorous home of a celebrity chef, and a major curator who wants to launch her art career. She's even started dating the perfect guy, but their new relationship might be sabotaged before it has a chance by the overwhelming desire with the one person who is most definitely off limits, his father. This new life she asked for just got a lot more complicated, and Faye must begin her search for real answers. Who is she ready to become? Can she release her past and honor her grief while still embracing her future? And of course, there's the biggest question of them all. How far is she willing to go for a second chance at love? I thought this book was absolutely amazing. Next up, we have Sorrowland. And one thing I will say about Sorrowland, check the trigger warnings first. But yeah, I thought the cover was beautiful. And it's by River Solomon. And I'll just read the little thing in the book jacket, because otherwise I'm just going to be like, So Vern, who is 7 months pregnant and desperate to escape the strict religious compound where she was raised, flees for the shelter of the woods. There she gives birth to twins and plans to raise them far from the influence of the outside world. But even in the forest, Vern is a hunted woman, forced to fight back against the community that refuses to let her go. She unleashes incredible brutality far beyond what a person should be capable of. Her body racked by inexplicable and uncanny changes. To understand her metamorphosis and to protect her small family, Vern has to face the past and, more troublingly, the future. Outside the woods, finding the truth will mean uncovering not only the secrets of the compound she fled, but also the violent history of America that produced it. Boom. Yeah. Sorrowland by River Solomon. They did something with that one. They really did. They did something with that one. Yes. So next up, we have Lesser Known Monsters of the 21st Century, Stories by Kim Fu. This is a book of short stories. I really enjoyed this book. I heard one of my local booksellers screaming from the rooftops that they really liked this book, and I was like, well, let me check it out. Story by story, I was like, yeah, this is the one right here. So in the 12 unforgettable tales of lesser known monsters of the 21st century, the strange is made familiar and the familiar strange, such that a girl growing wings on her legs feels like an ordinary rite of passage, while a bug-infested house becomes an impossible Kafkaesque nightmare. Each story builds a new world, all its own. A group of children steal a haunted doll. A runaway bride encounters a sea monster. A vendor sells toy boxes that seemingly control the passage of time. An insomniac is seduced by the Sandman. These visions of modern life wrestle with themes of death and technological consequence, guilt and sexuality, and unmask the contradictions that exist within all of us. Yeah. Next up, we got Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson. I think I have to sneeze. I know, I think it went back up. It like went back up in there. Okay, we're good. So yeah, we have The Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson. So born on a plantation in Charles City, Virginia, Phoebe Dolores Brown has lived a sheltered life, shielded by her mother's position as the estate's medicine woman and cherished by the master's sister. She is set apart from others on the plantation, belonging to neither world. She'd been promised freedom on her 18th birthday, but instead of the idyllic life she imagined with her true love, Essex Henry, Phoebe is forced to leave the only home she's ever known. She unexpectedly finds herself thrust into the bowels of slavery at the infamous Devil's Half Acre, a jail in Richmond, Virginia, where the enslaved are broken, tortured, and sold every day. There, Phoebe is exposed to not just her jailer's cruelty, but also his contradictions. To survive, Phoebe will have to outwit him, even if it means making the ultimate sacrifice. Now, baby, I have not seen a ton of people talking about The Yellow Wife, and I don't know why. And it needs to, I don't know. Maybe people like have bought it, but they just haven't read it yet or whatever. But it's very good. There are a lot of really great themes here too. And if I'm not mistaken, were there like questions in the back or something? Oh yes, this is a great book for any book club. Discussion questions in the back. Stand up, okay? Period. Yeah, like this book was absolutely amazing. And I know sometimes it's hard to read about the narratives of like enslaved people, but we have to understand that it's important to know where we come from, and it's important to know the history of this country, because I'm like, these are the books that we need to be kind of raising up. These are books that I want people to be talking about a little bit more. Yeah, we're gonna move on. So next up, I read 100 Boyfriends by Brontes Purnell. Oh, look at this cover. Fabulous. Fabulous. I'll just read the back and then we'll see what goes on. So, transgressive, foul-mouthed, and brutally honest, or brutally funny, Brontes Purnell's 100 Boyfriends is a revelatory spiral into the imperfect lives of queer men desperately fighting the urge to self-sabotage as they tiptoe through minefields of romantic, substance-fueled misadventure from dirty warehouses and gentrified bars in Oakland to desolate farm towns in Alabama. Purnell's characters strive for belonging in a world that dismisses them for being black, broke, and queer. In spite of it, perhaps because of it, they shine. It's a good time reading that book. Now this next one, oh boy. The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. Let's just talk about Tiffany D. Jackson for a minute. Hits, no skips on her literary journey, no skips. I have read The Weight of Blood and I've read White Smoke. I recently picked up Grown, but I've not read it yet. I mean, you better believe it's going on the 2023 book cart. Best believe it. No one is doing it like her right now, especially in the horror space. I think that she did a really great job. So this is kind of like a retelling of Carrie, the horror movie Carrie, but make it black. So basically this follows Maddie. Is that your name? Madison? Is that you? Yes. We follow Maddie, who is a black girl. However, she's biracial. And she has been living as a white girl per the request, not the request, but her father basically was like, her father who was a white man was basically like, if you want to be treated well in this world, if you want to be respectable, you got to show up as white. You can't show up as black. And so she has been going according to that. She straightens her hair. She's very fair skinned. And people were like, oh, that's just a white girl. That's just Maddie, white Maddie over there. And so one day, she's in gym class and it starts raining and she checked the forecast a bazillion times and she was just like, it didn't say it was gonna rain. And if it rains, my hair's gonna fro up and people are gonna know I'm black. And that's exactly what happens. People are like, why is her hair like that? Is she black? Oh my God. And then she is like the talk of the town. And then there's like a viral video of her being bullied that goes viral. And then the school is kind of like, they're like struggling to be like, oh, we have to like keep our image on social media. We have to keep up our image. We don't want people to think that we're racist and da da da. When like the school does have a very racist past, but they're willing to put a band-aid over it, but they're not willing to fix the problem or even, try to fix the problem. They're just like, nah, we're just gonna cover this with a band-aid. So their way to cover it with a band-aid is to host their first integrated prom. Mind you, now this book takes place in like 2014, I believe. So to have your first integrated prom with black and white students, it's a little late. in 2014, but I guess rather late than never, I suppose. But yeah, so then they're like, okay, we're gonna do that. And then I guess like the school's like, what is it? President? Not president. School, what do you call those people? The people that like, class president, there you go. Who was a white girl, who was dating, you know, the black football player, blah. She's like, oh, you need to take Maddie to prom. I think it would mean so much to her, blah, blah, blah. And like, she thinks she's doing like this great this great service to Maddie or whatever by having her, whatever. But then the gag is Maddie and the boyfriend, I think his name is Kendrick, they actually like hit it off. And then she's like, oh my God, she's trying to steal my man. And it's like, girl, you did this to you. You did this to you. But yeah, but basically more happens in the story, but I'm not going to tell you about it because then you won't read it. But basically everything happens on prom night, basically, and Maddie figures out that she has these like telekinesis powers. She's trying to figure out these powers, and people are out to get her because some of the white students received a little bit of blowback from the viral prank that was played on her. And so some people lost their scholarships to schools, and they were like, we're about to get this bitch. But actually, they're not about to get this bitch. The bitch about to get you. So, yeah. But everything really comes back to, like, prom night. And we also get, like, other ways of telling the story by, like, a true crime podcast. And we also get to see, like, clippings of, like, newspaper articles and things like that. So we have, like, firsthand accounts of, like, other characters that were like at prom, other characters that, you know, saw what Maddie did to like whatever on prom night. So yeah, it's a very good book. I thought it was written extremely well. Trigger warnings out the wazoo. Look them up. Trigger warnings. So next step is a twofer. It's a twofer. So this year I started the Legendborn series by Tracy Dion. Legendborn, look at that beautiful cover. And then I also read Bloodmarked, which is the second book in the series. Look at that beautiful cover. So Legendborn follows, oh no, what's this girl's name? Bree. Legendborn follows Bree, who is this 16-year-old girl, black girl living in South Carolina, I believe. And she is grieving the loss of her mother. From what she knows, it was a car accident, but she is in college now. She goes to college with her best friend. And, you know, while she's in college, she is like, you know, in the beginning, she's like, oh yeah, I'm about to drink and party and have a good time and da-da-da. And then, but on like the first weekend, I think she like sees some stuff. She like sees some magical stuff. She like sees monsters. And she was like, something weird is going on at this school. Like there's people with powers, there's monsters like running around the campus. And so she's like, okay, interesting. And so she comes upon this like secret society of white people who are like magical, have these powers. They have like a, I don't know, country club for magical white people. And basically she puts two and two together, and she was like, they had something to do with my mom's like passing. Like it was not just a car accident, it was something else. And so she basically infiltrates. She knows this guy named Nick, who is like he was supposed to be like her mentor, I guess, at the school, but then they get involved here, and Nick is actually like the golden boy of this whole thing, but he doesn't even want the responsibility. But he was like, well, if this is gonna help Bree, then I'm just gonna do it, and we're gonna do this together, and I'm gonna help Bree find out what happened to her mom and her family and all of this stuff. And so as the only black person in the organization, you know, she's facing a lot of racism, a lot of microaggression. She is facing all of this like adversity. Now, while all of this is happening, she is realizing that she has powers too, but she just doesn't know how to use them. And she's trying to figure out where the powers came from, because her mom did not talk about her having any powers before. So she was like, oh my God, was my mom like a healer? You know, was my mom a healer? This kind of thing. So I was like, okay, interesting. And so, you know, we kind of just see her navigating, you know, trying to find out what happened to her mom, trying to find out what these powers are. And she has like a therapist that helps her kind of, you know, try to figure out what the hell's going on around here. But also, yeah, so at the end of the book, and I guess I should have said spoiler alert, but at the end of the book, you know, something happens. Oh, yeah, I can just say something happens. Something happens and she gets another set of powers on top of the powers that she naturally has. And so in the next book, you know, where the first book was really about her, you know, it's about her figuring out her powers, figuring out herself, figuring out who she is, blah, blah, blah. It's also about her and Nick, because her and Nick are a thing. Hot item. What's the hot goss? But then events happen and Nick is gone for most of the second book. He's not dead. He's just gone. He's, you know, he pops in from time to time. And you'll see what I'm saying when you read it. But he pops in from time to time. But then also, in comes Selwyn. Selwyn was in the first book, but I didn't think that we were going to make Selwyn a love interest. Everybody else that read the book was like, oh, he's about to be a love interest. But I was like, no, it's Selwyn. He hates her. But, you know, Bree started to grow on Selwyn in the first book, which we saw. And Selwyn is like, Selwyn grew up with Nick, and he's like Nick's protector almost. So like when bad things happen to Nick, Selwyn feels it. And so in the second book, we see Bree continue her journey, but she's, you know, she has the help of Selwyn the entire time, and things get a little hot and spicy. I was like, ooh, like I did not see that for Selwyn in the first book, but like now I'm looking at Selwyn like, okay, hi. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And Selwyn is the guy on the book. Hello. Hello, yes. Yeah, but so far, I can't wait for the third book. I don't know when the third book is coming, but Legendborn and Bloodmarked were definitely like heavy hitters this year. But I'm really excited for whatever the next book is, because now I feel like with the next book, we have to talk about, okay, I feel like the direction is she gonna end up with Nick or is she gonna end up with Selwyn? And my thing is like, why does she have to choose? Why can't she just have both? I mean, like, that's just how I feel. Why can't she have both? Like, can't they work something out? Aren't we like, isn't it 2022, almost 2023? Why are we still doing this like thing in societal, you know, inside the realm of societal expectations of patriarchy? Like, why can't she have both? I just feel like she should be able to have both, and I don't feel like she needs to choose a man. Sorry. When it comes to like men like fighting over, or like, you know, fighting over black women, like I'm just like, why can't she have both? A next one, I have another twofer. So I read Beasts of Prey, Hello cover by Ayana Gray, and I also read Beasts of Ruin, which is the second book. So Beasts of Prey, oh Lord, what is this girl's name? It follows Adaya, but it also follows Kofi, and it follows Ekon. Okay, here we go. So Kofi works at this night zoo as an indentured servant with her mom, because her dad was someone who was not good with money. He kept getting the family into financial ruin. And then I think the dad passed away, but when he passed away, all the debt went to Kofi and her mom. And they were like, well, you gotta pay this off, so you still gotta work here as indentured servants. And so they work as beast keepers, basically. So they're really good with like the animals of the circus. So one night, well, it gets really close to Kofi and her mom. They're like, okay, our debt is almost paid off. We are about to be free, and you know, nothing can stop us. But then Kofi makes a mistake, and then they get more debt added on. So now they're like, oh, we're not about to be free. And then there's a moment for them. There comes a time when it's a moment for them to both escape. Her mom doesn't make it, but Kofi does make it. Kofi is able to escape, and Kofi sees this very like deadly creature. It's called the Shatani. I think it's called the Shatani. And it's supposed to be this very dangerous creature that's, you know, that's like guilty of like just killing a lot of people in the villages. And so, but like, Kofi walks right up to the Shatani, and you know, they have a very beautiful moment. Now Ekon sees this moment, and Ekon is someone who is about to become someone of the, it's called the Sons of the Six is what he's in. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's like military specifically, but they're just like guardians of the community, I guess. And so he was supposed to take Kofi in, but he didn't because he was too like mesmerized or whatever. So Kofi got away. And then the Sons of the Six was like, Ekon didn't do his job, so he's not gonna get promoted into the Sons of the Six. Like he's like in the process of going into it, but he was like, well, since you did this, you can't be in the Sons of the Six. And so Ekon makes this like deal. He's like, okay, well, if I go out and kill the Shitani, I'm gonna go find the Shitani, I'm gonna go kill the Shitani, because the Shitani was allegedly allegedly the thing that killed his father. And so he was like, well, if I go out and kill it, then they have to let me be a Sons of the Six. And then at the same time, Kofi makes a deal with the zookeeper, with the person that owns the zoo. She's like, if I go and get you the Shitani for you to have in your night zoo, you have to let me, my mom, and my, I guess like play brother, but like little brother, but play brother. They're not blood related, but they care for each other a lot, Jabari. You have to let them go. Like, we are free, our debts are erased, boom. And he's like, fine, if you can do that, fine. And so both of these people separately are going to hunt the same Shitani. And now, but then they end up together hunting the Shitani, but they're not being honest with each other about like what they want with each one. Like they're kind of, they don't trust each other at first. They're just like, nah, like I'm not gonna let you know what's going on. Yeah, we're both just trying to find it, but they're not telling each other why and stuff like that. And so as they're traveling through this like dangerous forest together, they are, you know, they're reckoning with a lot of things in their lives, reckoning with like guilt, a lot of shame of things, because they think that like, you know, oh, me doing this was my fault. If I would have just did this right, my parents would still be alive, my parents would be free, this kind of thing. And like, I love this book because it's like action, action, action. It's beautiful beasts. The way that the food is described in here, it's like you can taste it, you can smell it, but it's also just like people being really in touch with their emotions and dealing with guilt and shame. These young people are just like, this is my fault that they're not here. And it's, you know, so they're reckoning with that. And so at the end of this book, at the end of the first book, things happen, but Kofi and Ekon get separated at the end of the book. Enter Beasts of Ruin. So in Beasts of Ruin, Ekon and Kofi are separated and they're going on their individual journeys, but they're trying to get back to each other. And I think that's all I can really say without ruining anything else. But then so the books are, you know, each chapter is someone's POV. So it can either be Ekon's or Kofi's POV. And so in the second book, we are introduced to Benti. And I cannot tell you anything more about Benti, unfortunately, without ruining the book. I really enjoyed Beasts of Prey. Next up, we have The Wash Day Diaries. Oh my God. Look at this beautiful cover. Look at all these beautiful Black people. So yes, The Wash Day Diaries is a graphic novel. I've read it twice this year, and I really, really love the story. So each story, there's 4 stories. Each story follows one of the different friends in this 4-friend group. And all the stories incorporate Black women's hair in some way. And I hope that more people decide to pick this up. Like, I tell people about this book all the time. I think it's fabulous. I think the art is very good, but I think the storylines really hit, and I think that it's a great conversation piece as well, and it's a great gift as well. So I mean, please. Next up, we have The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Deisha Philyaw. This is one of my favorite books of the year. My word. So The Secret Lives of Church Ladies explores the raw and tender places where Black women and girls dare to follow their desires and pursue a momentary reprieve from being good. The 9 stories in this collection feature 4 generations of characters grappling with who they want to be in the world, caught as they are between the church's double standards and their own needs and passions. There is a 14-year-old girl who has a crush on the preacher's wife. At 42, Lyra realizes that her discomfort with her own body stands between her and a new love. As Y2K looms, Caroletta's same time next year arrangement with her childhood best friend is tenuous. A serial mistress lays down the ground rules for her married lovers. In the dark shadows of a hospice parking lot, grieving strangers find comfort in each other. With their secret longings, new love, and forbidden affairs, these church ladies are as seductive as they want to be, as vulnerable as they need to be, as unfaithful and as unrepentant as they care to be, and as free as they deserve to be. I have nothing but good things to say. I finished that book in a day. I didn't mean to, and that was not the plan, but I finished it in a day because it was that good. The writing was amazing, and like I wouldn't say that I grew up in like such a religious family, but there was a lot of themes that I could really connect with in there, and I really appreciated it, so I really liked it a lot. So the next book I have is Life from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. What a great book. Shizuka Satomi made a deal with the devil. To escape damnation, she must entice 7 other violin prodigies to trade their souls for success. She already has delivered 6. When Katrina Wynn, a young transgender runaway, catches Shizuka's ear with her wild talent, Shizuka can almost feel the curse lifting. She found her final candidate. But in a donut shop off a bustling highway in the San Gabriel Valley, Shizuka meets Lan Tran, a retired starship captain, interstellar refugee, and mother of 4. Shizuka doesn't have time for crushes or coffee dates, what with her very soul on the line, but Lan's kind smile and eyes like stars might just redefine a soul's worth. And maybe something as small as a warm donut is powerful enough to break the curse as vast as the California coastline. So yeah, I love this book. It was heartbreaking. It was funny. I love Katrina. We love Katrina. Katrina. Yes, here comes the hurricane, bitch. Okay, yeah. But anyway, I loved Katrina's character. I loved being on the journey with her growth and being okay with herself. And her deciding to live her life on her own terms as well. I also loved that sapphic romance between Shizuka and Lan Tran. I thought that was such a beautiful moment. The last book I'm going to talk about, I actually don't have the physical copy. If I can figure out how to put like a book picture here of the book, I will. But it's called The Blood Trials, and it's by N.E. Davenport. So The Blood Trials follows Ikenna, who is, in the beginning of the book, we meet her when she's grieving her grandfather. Her grandfather, she was told that her grandfather had a heart attack. But she gets some intel that that's not what happened. Somebody murdered him. And so before, she was like, you know, everyone was expecting her to become a she was supposed to become some sort of officer of some sorts. And it's kind of like military, I guess. But she was supposed to become this like officer and go through these trials, and then after her grandfather died, she was like, well, what's the point? And so, but once she found out that her grandfather was actually murdered, she was like, no, we're going through these trials. Let's go. She's basically going through these trials to get intel on who murdered her father, because then she was like, well, then once I find out who murdered the grandfather, I'm gonna murder them. The trials are mostly male dominated. She is a black woman. And there are not a lot of women, and there are not a lot of black people who go through these trials, nor do they survive them generally either. And so she is facing so much adversity. She is facing, people are giving her shit because she's a woman. People are giving her shit because, you know, she had a father or a grandfather who was like in the high ranks of like their like military or whatever. And so they were like, oh, you're just, you know, people are going to be easy on you and da da da. And like they're doing, you know, they're calling her all sorts of names because she's black, and she has to like fight for her life every day, but like on and off, in and out of the trials. She has to like fight for her life for different reasons. There are like multiple attempts on her life as well. And, you know, she's trying to keep her friends safe because she has friends that are going through the trials as well. And, you know, she's reckoning with like becoming a leader and then being like, well, I don't want the responsibility when like people die. I don't want it to be my fault or something like that. But she's realizing she's going to have to like step up and stuff like that. And she also has a secret. She has blood magic, which is like very frowned upon in their society because like their enemy uses like blood magic, and with blood magic you can like control people with their own blood. Like it's wild. It's a very cool power, but I can see why people would be very like scared of that kind of power. So, you know, all this time she's going through these trials that would be a little bit easier for her if she could use her powers, but she's like, I can't use them. Her grandfather told her not to really use them and not to really let people know that she could do it, whatever. And so she goes through these trials. And that's all I'm gonna say. You should just read the book. And if you really want to do yourself a favor, listen to the audiobook. The audiobook was like listening to a movie. It was wild. Like, I've talked about it though in my podcast already. There's an episode on the blood trials if you want to listen to that too. There's a little bit more information there, but I didn't spoil anything there because I was like, I really want people to read this book. And then next year, Blood Gifted is coming out, which is the sequel. And actually, this is only supposed to be a duology. So there's only supposed to be 2 books. I mean, if you haven't read the blood trials, definitely put it on your list. I would say there is and I can really say all the trigger warnings here because I love the book so much and I know what they are offhand. Very bloody, very gory, very violent. Ikenna is getting her ass whooped the entire book, but she's also whooping ass. She's also like handing the ass back to the people whooping her ass. So I was like, yes. So that's why I wasn't too mad about it, because I was like, yeah, people got some licks off her or whatever. But then she was like, nah, I'm about to whoop some ass. And she did. She was whooping ass, cussing the entire time, fighting. I loved it. She was drunk for like the beginning of the first, like, the first few chapters. She was drunk because she was grieving, but she was drunk and she was getting out. She was getting wild. Loved it. Also, names of note you need to know, and you need to already start hating them now. Chance. In the book, The Blood Trials, we hate Chance. Chance is a fucking idiot. We hate him. I know you haven't read the book yet, but we hate him. He's awful. He's terrible. And what I will say is Annie Davenport wrote that character so well that I hate him, and he didn't even do nothing to me personally. I hate him. I hate him. So that's how you know the writing's really good. Because I, like, during this book, every time she was like, oh, and Chance, I'd be like, oh, Chance. You know, like, oh. I was just very invested in the characters. I'm very invested in the stories, but you know me, or maybe you don't know me, but you're gonna start to get to know me, I guess. But yeah, it was a very good book, and I think it was my favorite book it was my favorite read of the year. But I think it's like one of my favorite books I've ever read. That's all I got. But again, my name is Kerwin. I'll be back with a video around me putting together my TBR cart for 2023. I'm real excited about that because I have so many books that I need to get through. And there's just like a lot of science fiction and fantasy, and I have some fantasy romances that I'm trying to get into, which I love romance already, but I've been getting so far into like the sci-fi fantasy space that now I'm like, okay, I'm ready for a little fantasy romance. So I'm really excited to get into that. And it'll be a good old time. So yeah, I hope you join me for that. I also have a new podcast episode coming out that's going to talk about my favorite nonfiction books of the year. And I'll just discuss those a little bit, but I've been kind of discussing them all year. But yeah, if you have the time, also listen to my podcast. It's called litbaepod. I'm everywhere. I'm on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. I'm everywhere, baby. So go ahead and listen. And then I'll put all my other contact information and books. I'll include all these books here in the show notes, as I say. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you later. Okay, bye.